Microphone's on.
All right, call the order. Can you call the?
Sure, I can call the roll. Mr. Pollock,
Here?
Mr. Gifford,
Here.
Ms. Foy is not, Mr. Postic is not, Mr. Lake.
Here.
Okay.
I will have a moment of silence. Please remember the people in Ukraine. We'll say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 4, we'll consider approving the agenda. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those not say nay. Accepted. Consider approving the minutes from February 3rd, meeting from Parks and Rec 2022. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Hearing none, it's accepted. Now we'll go to new business, 6.1 Public Works update.
Certainly. So first of all, I see there's two items on the agenda. One of them is the Geese issue at Drexel Lodge Park. So the board did authorize the recommendation by Park and Rec that we do geese deterring over at Brookside. So the township's animal warden, Alan Strickler, I met with him. He's been using different methods to scare them off. And the key is to scare them off now because they're just about to start nesting. So he started by scaring them with dogs and lights and sound and those kind of things. I had counted 90 geese out there. And when I went out the last 2 times, I counted 1. Wow. And I think the one they left the poor guy out there. I think they all took off and left them. I'm not saying that they don't come back at different times, but they are definitely scattering a bit. So it should discourage them from setting up shop. And then hopefully when they set up their nests, it'll be somewhere else. And the park will be usable by the time you're ready to start your concerts and those kind of things. So we authorized using him for 4 months. So that'll take us up until when we start the concerts and after they've nested somewhere else. We'll see after that because it's about $1,000 a month. It's not a cheap thing to do. So it's definitely chewing up a nice chunk of my park budget, but it's worth it because we couldn't use the park for the things you envisioned using it for if 90 geese were there, one, interacting with people, and 2, making a mess when they did that. So the board agreed with us and they authorized the expenditure. So it's been working so far. After they started scaring the geese, then they started putting up the silhouettes of the dogs and the coyotes and all that. And they do it in conjunction. So it's like a daily scaring at different times. The silhouettes are always there. There's some other things they do. Again, nothing inhumane, nothing lethal, just discouraging them from wanting to be right there. And so far it's working.
Name of the
Oh, Alan Strickler is the township's animal warden. Most of the time, that's the person that would deal with a deer. That's the person that would deal with a runaway, a dog running loose or something like that. But again, he's got expertise in all animal things. So he's the guy we'd call in. If we, obviously, if there was another wild animal concern or something, that's who I would call. So do you have any questions about that?
Well, are you going to do any other parks or are you just going to do Drexel Lodge?
So for right now, we're going to do just Drexel Lodge. One, because it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
I would say that in the future, we may do other parks, especially as master plans start getting implemented, such as, for example, Greer Park.
So Greer Park's design is made so that one of the basis was to get rid of the geese. So there
Yeah.
shouldn't be a geese problem there once it's implemented and everything grows in them.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping as well. I don't know if in the very beginning, we may need to augment that a little bit because you are going to get geese who were born there that are going to come back naturally,
And I think
whether
you
they're
have-
going to,
You have seedlings of plants as well, which they're attracted to. Everybody.
yeah. Yeah, so we may do something like that. The geese problem has not been as significant at other parks, though. It exists around, but it's whenever you have a body of water, that's really what encourages them, and that's where they're going to nest, is going to be near that. So right now we're not doing it at others, and even after we do these 4 months, we'll determine a longer term plan. For maybe next year's budget. That this is something we need to do. It's just. There's a lot we could have done with $1,000 a month in the park system.
Yeah.
But again, to have a beautiful park like Drexel Lodge and not be able to have events at it properly is ridiculous.
And it is our main park, it is our community park, so.
Yeah.
Most of our events are held there.
Yeah. And that to have somewhere that you can't encourage people to sit down on the ground is sad.
Yeah.
So then, and the other item is the shading at Brookside Park. So if Steve could pull up a couple of things. So there's the first option that came back after Caitlin and I met with Paul Grimm from Boyce Associates. That's somebody we buy a lot of things from. So the first option that the sale company came back with, I'm not a fan of, but it's appropriate to bring it to you and ask you what you think. The first thing they came up with was to literally put a shade over the entire play area, because one of the concerns was there's no shade on the play area itself. I'm not a fan of that because what they're trying to do is recreate what some of the modern play sets do, and that those shades are incorporated right into them these days. When a play set goes in, they literally have it that it's built that way. Because Brookside's was not built that way, and he looked at it, it can't be retrofitted to have something added into it. You have to shade from another area to try to cast the shadow on it. So the one option that the place came up with was two options. One, this, and if you scroll down is the other one. The challenge is it is literally putting a tent over the entire play area.
Yeah,
And I think I suspect that's more than what you were looking for. I think that's too much.
Yeah.
And
And then what's the maintenance on something like that? It's probably.
It is. So the two issues that I had with that possibility was one, you have to take it down every year anyway. It has to come down in the winter and into that. You can't keep it up all year because it doesn't have a load for snow.
Does Public Works do that?
Yeah, we would do that. Yeah, we would definitely do that. You'd have to clean it. I don't know how many years you get out of it. I think what bothered me about that is the only way you can do it is to put 4 poles around the perimeter of the playground. And my sense is that it detracts from the playground then. You are shading it, but at the same point, there's no way to get out of the shade now. You're always going to be undercover, and you've got 4 posts that you're going to be dealing with constantly. The other design, as you saw, is actually 2 posts. It's like 2 L posts. That one's got 4, and the one down below is actually 2 posts, and it goes over. But it's still the same concept. It still shades the entire thing, not just a portion of it.
What about there's the picnic, or it's a table.
Yeah.
With the chessboard and all that. Is that under this?
So that would not be under this one. This one would, the amount budgeted would be entirely eaten up with something like this.
Well, I was thinking something that would basically cast shade for the parents sitting, watching, not necessarily for the children playing on the apparatus there.
Right. So when we were meeting with Caitlin, at with Paul Grimm, she also said that one of the concerns was that there is no shade on the playground equipment itself, which is why the option came up. And that was why we asked to meet there, if you remember, was I needed to understand exactly what are you looking to shade so that we're coming up with the proposals for that. So this is an option that I thought it was fair to share with you. It's not an option that I happen to like, but it's not my decision as to what you would recommend to the Board of Supervisors. So that's one. The other thing I'd like to show you, if Steve, you can go on the link and scroll down. Yeah, so if you click on the center picture there, yeah. And even if you just kind of scroll through those pictures. So another option would be to use some of the, I know you had looked at the Funbrella before. This is a version of that. It's a single post, large squared off umbrella, which you can put in series if you want. That's something that would be a little more for the parents. And you can probably put one at the far end that would cast a shadow on a portion of the playground set. The negative to this one with regard to the playground set shading is that the only place to put it based on where the sun shines and the shadow would be cast, you would need it basically on the Brookside Road corner. So almost, you know, where the Brookside Park playground set, or the sign is, the green sign for Brookside Park, you would almost have to have something like this or a sail or whatever you had in that corner so that you could cast the shadow toward the playground. The downside of that is that you would, it is the first thing you would see when you drive up and you look at the playground, is you would see an umbrella. That's, you know, the challenge there. But it is two options that are, you know, reasonable to consider. You can put a couple umbrellas back by where the parents would sit, you know, one over one of the tables and one next to it. You can put them in different locations. It gives you a little more flexibility as to where you want to put them. We could put a third one or one of the two in the corner to try to cast a little shade onto the playground set itself. The only unfortunate thing is the visual there is that it's going to be what you see when you drive past.
And you're limited as to what you can shade there anyway, unless you do a whole big tarp over it.
Yeah.
So I don't know that, you know, these individual things satisfy that requirement of having the shade on the playground equipment, which was never our requirement anyway. It was always, I believe, to do the tables where the parents and grandparents.
Right.
If you want to take public comment, we can have Sheila stand up there.
Hi, it's Sheila O'Sullivan Feeney, 120 Beechwood Road, Newtown Square, PA. Also an EAC member who's ordered to attend your lovely meetings. I actually was at the Parks and Rec meeting and kind of came up with this idea for Parks and Shades. We talked about it shading the individual play areas for the children as well as the adults. So I understand the concerns. We also talked about the possibility, I don't know if you guys looked into it, but cabling. So we would run the shades or the sails off of the tree. So that way we wouldn't have to worry about a fixed body or something of that nature. Have you explored that option to see if indeed? And I would hope that we would provide a shade for the children in a safe area as well as for parents, especially with global warming and the sun. And if you've ever been down at Brookside Park, which I have and had children there, it's extremely hot and it's important to have some shading. We could also supplement some of that shading with a tree. So I would really encourage you to also do that. Maybe we could put a tree in that corner by the sign. That will allow you the shade to project onto it a little bit, give you a shade there, and then put the umbrella device in the back.
Okay.
Thank you, Sheila.
So we had looked at the cabling and the tree possibility. It's not recommended because of the what the wind would do with the shade, with the sail, with the weight of they could wind up coming down on it and that kind of stuff. They're not going to recommend installing anything. I mean, otherwise, unless we did like a very almost like a homemade kind of option that we would do there, but there are liability concerns if you do something like that. This is something that you install a foundation. It's designed for certain wind resistance and those kind of things. And, from a safety standpoint, it's probably the best, especially since we're not there monitoring it. Something like this is probably a little more what would be recommended in the play area. Although Sheila is exactly right. I mean, at one point that was the discussion of doing something, simple to provide some shade over there.
Yes, we did discuss that. But I don't know that funding involved with it. And I don't know that the cabling on the on trees as well, it might hurt the trees. Also, I didn't think of that, but visioning it, I don't know, cabling around is a good thing.
So it had been my hope that I was going to bring you an actual proposal for approval to send along to the board. When I saw what they were coming up with and some of the challenges when they met out there, and again, trying to narrow down what your vision is so that they could meet that. I wanted to bring what they had so far. And even though it kicks it back another month, take your responses back to them and have them give me some more formal proposals based on either smaller umbrella concepts or, yes, you like the big giant concept and go with something like that. Whatever, I want to bring you something that you can say, yes, I think this is what our vision is that I could bring to the board.
Who was that Bill and?
So Bill and Caitlin were scheduled to show up. Only Caitlin showed up, though. Bill did not come.
Okay.
We were actually waiting for Bill for a while, but he did not get there.
It was Caitlin and you?
Caitlin and myself and Paul Grimm is the representative from Boyce Associates. They're actually the company that installed the playground set there, and the one at Drexel Lodge and the one at Greer and some of them.
So to shade the merry-go-round, which is something you could probably shade, you would need that umbrella somewhere in the front. And again, that's going to not do favors to the aesthetics.
It is. It's the same concept as the square ones that are there. The funbrella. It's the same concept as the square ones. Those funbrellas are. He said they're generally a little more used in an area that would be like a swimming pool or an area with asphalt and those kind of things. But although they could be used anywhere, you could put them absolutely anywhere. These squared off ones were kind of what they were recommending might be the better option over there.
I would assume there's less maintenance, and less cost.
It is. So he thought they ran in the ballpark of $5,000 each if we did the foundation installation. We have $18,000 budgeted for shade at Brookside Park. So that would, we could in theory get 3 of the square options that we're looking at there. I think the funbrella that you were looking at was, I think it was about 8 or 9. So you would be able to get 2 of something like that if that was going to be the option. The rectangular one that went over the entire set was higher than we budgeted. It was about $20,000 if we did the installation of the foundations. If it was something you looked at and you said that's absolutely what we wanted, then we could always go back to the board and ask for the balance. I don't know that I would encourage spending $20,000 on that, though. That would be my own option.
And what is the maintenance cost between options?
So I believe both options, the maintenance cost comes at the end of the season when you take it down and you clean it and you do some maintenance to the poles and those kind of things. And then when you put it back up again, as a general rule, they're designed to stay up. So it's not something like an umbrella that you need to raise and lower and those kind of things. One of the reasons why he was recommending the square ones as well, is that there is no mechanism for opening and closing them. Because you wouldn't want any visitors to the park to take the initiative to raise it or lower it. Someone will get hurt and you wouldn't want that. So it's a very permanent, affixed setup. The frame always stays in place. The frame doesn't come down. It's the canvas itself that does.
Cost of that is not too much.
It's, I mean,
Labor hours.
it's the labor, yeah, it's the labor hours, which is, it's reasonable. I mean, we're getting ready right now to order the playground mulch for the year. So we're going to be spending, plenty of time in the park. We've been spending a lot of time in the parks doing, some of our cutbacks and those things, which we usually do every winter. We're going to be jumping into playground mulch and weeding and all those kind of things.
This would be another task added on to.
Yeah, it would, but again, we're comfortable with it at Brookside. It was a request that Park and Rec made to the board. It was a request the board agreed with and budgeted, and obviously, I wouldn't have even brought it to them at that point and put it in the budget if we weren't ready to do it for you.
Steve, can you send this presentation to us? Right. We'll have everyone look at it. You're asking us to vote next month, right?
Yeah, it would be, I guess what I'm asking now, just is a sense of what else would you like to see so that I can come back with more drawings? If your sense is that is definitely not what we had in mind and really don't want it, it's not really a vote. It's giving me some direction as to what I should make sure that I bring back to you at the next month to actually vote on.
Does this have dimensions on it?
There are dimensions on the bottom, I believe. One, we'll send it to you. But if they don't have them there, I will get them because they based it on the actual footprint of the playground equipment.
The difference in cost between the two is saying 20,000 and 15,
Yeah.
5,000 more to shade the entire.
But then that would only be shading the playground. That would not be shading any of the parent areas.
I agree. I think we want shades so the parents can sit in the shade. And they may have a baby carriage, I don't think it would be really doing what we want if it doesn't.
Yeah, that was my sense. And I thought that we could potentially try to look and see if something could go in the front that might block like the slide or something like that, that would be maybe an area that would get hotter than the rest.
Or where that like alligator, whatever I mean, if there was some area where the children could congregate in the shade, rather than having to shade the entire thing, it's like they have the option of going into the shade.
Right. And one of the challenges too is because they're looking to retrofit shade. In new sets, the shade is, as I said, it's integral to the playground itself. So it's not like there is a pole that you can run into when you're playing. It's something that's usually built into the mechanism of the playground. And then, so the shade might be part of the post that makes up the playground set itself. Here, we're going to be retrofitting. So there's always the concern of you are putting something that somebody could run into. And they're trying to be mindful of that. That I think that's why they didn't recommend sticking a pole in the middle of the playground mulch, because it becomes something that a child could knock into right there. They tried to put the posts outside of the immediate play area. But if it's your wish, I can go back and try to get some small shade layout options that would provide parents some shade and see if there's something that can cast a shadow onto at least a portion of the set.
Or like you're saying, an area, even an area.
Mm-hmm.
In the grass. And that might be a way, we were talking about attracting kids to that grassy area instead of playing in the grass. shaded area might be the answer, but I know you're saying that the pole they could run it. A padding might be an option.
It could be an option. The padding doesn't last too long. I mean, the padding goes a season and then you got to put, more for the next season. But that's, if that's what the recommendation is and the eventual layout, then that's what we would do.
Girls are probably.
They do find a way to eat
Yes.
some strange things.
I have a question. I worked at a swimming pool one summer and we had those really nice round tables with the umbrellas going right down the middle. We have one at our home and we move our chairs. It's a hot day to get in shade. And they're not huge umbrellas, but they do have the cranks. I mean, that would, if we explore that, I know we wouldn't want to be having you guys go over and crank, especially in windstorms.
Exactly. And that was why, and it's a good point. And that's why they were trying to recommend something that had no option of doing that. One, because it would require somebody to go every day and open it up. And then every day somebody would need to lower it.
We had the lifeguards. We wouldn't let the kids do it.
Yeah.
Well, then the kids probably would end up doing it. There's somebody would fool around with it.
Somebody is going to, exactly. Or, a well-intentioned parent is going to do something. And again, you run the risk somebody's going to get hurt doing it or not do it right or break it or whatever.
Well, if it's something like that to a windstorm, blow it away. And you don't really have people there all the time.
So I'm going to drive down there myself. And package.
Great. So what I will do is before we send the package to you, because one of them is a link to their website and one of them is an actual drawing that came over. I'll make sure that we get some PDFs together of the website so that, you're kind of looking apples and apples and we'll get that formulated into a package for you. Good. Yeah. One of the nice things about the site is it's actually several examples of places that they installed these things. And you can kind of scroll through and see it in different settings. So we'll get that to you. And if I'm reading it right, I'll try to encourage maybe a couple layouts of the park tot lot area, utilizing this kind of a concept with the individual umbrella ideas and just see what we think might work there. Again, so that I can give you a formal presentation at the next meeting.
We think the two, if we go with this two or three umbrellas, at least two of them should be over those tables where people would.
Did you look at all into like the playground set that we have now? Is there any accessories options that could be attached to that or casting shade, or is that so they don't make any?
So we did ask that question while we were there, and that set does not have anything that would attach to it. It's interesting. It's in good shape, but it's an older set. I mean, most of the sets in town are actually not all that new. They're at least 15 years, if not 20 years old. We do need to start thinking, because they were built before some of the newer regulations, came in. They are accessible to an extent, but not accessible to the level that they're designed and built now. So he recommended that we be thinking whenever we would want to start recommending replacing the set, do we want to put our money into retrofitting now, or do we want to start saving over a few years to replace the set entirely with something that might have a lot more capacity to it. And I think it's a fair consideration. Because any retrofitting they would do is, because the set's not designed for it, it's a risk. Yeah, that's the challenge, which is a shame because that would always be my preference. Like, what can we do to just modify it a little bit? And I mean, it's sort of like the bleachers that we're, that we're ordering. I would love to take our bleachers and modify them somehow and add the back on them or something, bring them up to code. You're not permitted to do something like that. I mean, once you touch something, you have to make sure it's at this level. I should say we are very close to ordering the new bleachers for Gable Field. We are going to take the old set of bleachers that are at Gable, which they're okay. They're it's not like they're bad, but they're out of code for being high like that. You need a back on them now, and those are of a height that you're not allowed to do that. But we did investigate, and we can disassemble them down to about the first 3 rows, the first 3 sets, and we are going to bring the first 3 runs over to Brookside Park and replace those old ones at Brookside Park. It'll only be a run of 3, but it's definitely an upgrade to what's there. And it does meet code doing it that way because we haven't gone too high.
Nice, good.
I know you'd expressed concern about that in the past. So, we're trying to reuse what we've got within the limits of making sure we're honoring the code and being safe and all that. If it's only 3 rungs, we're good. We don't have to worry about the back.
And that doesn't get used that much. Usually not that many people there, so I think.
Yeah, and it's 2 sets with 3 rows, so it should be good down there.
Anybody looked into the cost of placing the whole set of books? Like you were saying, over the period of a few years,
So I would say is you would want to be thinking at about $100,000 when you're looking to replace a set like that. That's around the ballpark you want to start anticipating. What we should be thinking of with Brookside Park would be, what would that tot lot look like whenever we do that? And obviously a master plan is the ideal way to approach that. But again, it wouldn't hurt to start thinking like, well, what would you want there? And kind of start building it up from that. Again, I mean, Greer Park's a fair example where, there's $75,000 ready to be spent on the playground equipment there because over 3 years they built up. The intention had been to put a new playground set in after 3 years. Now it's going toward the master plan, which is much better, but it can be done. If we want to start looking at replacing a set, we can request $25,000 over 3 or 4 years and be ready to jump on it once we're ready to go.
So I don't know which park would be. I would rather concentrate on Drexel Lodge. Want to do anything playground outside of a master plan. And the township's all this strategic plan calls for Drexel Lodge to be our park. We're going to spend money on parks in the next 5 years. I strongly need to. Rear Park has got pretty nice playground. Gable's fairly new. Brookside might be 12, but it's pretty good.
It's in fine shape. It really is.
Past another 5 years, I assume. I'd rather concentrate on Drexel Lodge. Capital investment. But if we want to look at a playground long term, 5 years from now. Take a look at all of them. Which one?
Curious, you say, put aside a certain amount of money every year. How does that work? I mean, they don't actually take $25,000 and put it in a bank, right? Is it just like earmarked or set aside? We're planning on having that, and how's that?
Sure. So they actually take, they actually budget in, and I'll use Greer Park as the example, because when the old play set had to come down, immediately they started budgeting to replace it, as soon as they could raise enough money to do it. So they budgeted, they took $25,000 from the budget and they set it aside and they committed it to the following year and then added another 25 to it and then committed that to year
So is
3.
that actually in an account somewhere?
It's all within the master account, but it's a separate line item that's accounted for by the finance
Not to be
department.
touched for
Exactly.
It's carried over each year because they've had it for a few years. So, I mean, it's gaining interest and it's in there, it's carried over each year. It's just not spent.
Yeah, and we do something very similar with something like the road program. I mean, we put money every year into road work. We don't necessarily do a road program every single year. We let the money build up, 2-3 years so that we could go out and do more roads for less money once every 3 years, once every 4 years, and get more done because obviously greater quantity, the lower the price comes in at per square yard. So they do that on a few things.
Guess we'll move on to old business. Consider approving an action to finalize spring concert plans at Drexel Lodge Park. So, Just Roofs, yes, right in the circle there. They committed to old sponsor today, dropped the check off. That's 2 we have so far. A lot of irons in the fire. I think it will be okay. I'm going to try and get actually the money down managed well that we will. I did receive the contract from the band Yarn, so I'm trying to send it in. Adjusted a little. The Ungers have offered them a place to stay.
Justin?
No,
The people that
what's the name of the?
just roofing?
I will send you their. And so there's other people. What is the cutoff for the magazine for advertising? 14th, I thought you said. Okay. Because Paul was a little confused. He thought it was the 4th. I'm not. No, it's the 14th. Don't get me in a panic. Okay. So we'll send you the poster by the 14th. That's good enough. Okay. And I guess we're gonna ask for the sign again, just for that day, if the police can, but I don't know what the requirements are gonna be that complete, but if we get there and it's available, they can place it.
Absolutely.
And they were actually interested. We do pretty good advertising. I explained to them everything that we do, and they were pretty surprised by that. So I think we do have a selling point. And, you know, one of the things I want to do for the concerts next year is perhaps change how we fundraising, do it on an annual. We'll put it on the agenda.
What time's that concert begin? At 4 o'clock?
4 to 6 it is. Oh,
On the 14th.
the cutoff for the discussion and possible action related to options for teen-specific event at Drexel Lodge Park. Peter, you were going to reach out to.
Yeah, I did reach out to the head of guidance at high school, Tracy Jacobson, but she never responded. Mentioned Rich Eno and coordinate with him. At this point, busy, I guess.
And I think because of COVID, we're still under some restrictions. People really don't want to get involved with anything because they don't know what the heck's going to happen tomorrow. I don't blame. Maybe we postpone this until fall is probably a good idea. Things will be freer and or something. Because I'm struggling myself. I haven't heard back from Jake yet either on it. So we'll, I guess we'll table that until discussion and possible action to the upcoming committee review of Drexel Lodge Park. So I think we just need to try and envision what this community park could be, you know, 10 years, 20 years down the road. What it could be used for, partnerships, not necessarily, you know, anything in the near term, but anything that we could come up with in the near term. But we should, you know, our focus should be on the long term, how this park could be used, how we could use trail. Someone sent me, or I sent it to Terry McCarthy over on Trails Committee, try and put up a sign. There's $500 that the county gives out in grants, small grants, and just it's for trails. So I'm thinking a sign would probably be covered under that. We could add it in the parking lot at the park. So that's something in the short term that we could use the trail committee as well, and you know, develop a little bit of partnership. Just, you know, if everybody just keeps going out. Is like I said, it is in the strategic plan that this should be our community park. Logistically and size wise and everything else.
Wait, if I may ask, I know that the mural was going to be, I know they were going to try to aim to complete the mural before the first Saturday in June.
Yes.
Do they?
We still think that's going to happen. I talked with her this week. I'm sorry, I should have asked. I'm just waiting for her to get back to me to confirm dates. But I did tell her that we wanted it done. He was okay with that.
Gotcha. I just, since we were talking about Drexel Lodge, I
Right.
thought it was appropriate to check in with that.
So I think I'm going to need to paint back in there in about a month or so. And next meeting, we'll kind of decide on the date when it's warm.
Sure.
But when will you open the bathroom?
We're looking to open them up as soon as we can. So I'm watching the weather, and as soon as I see that the freeze is done, I mean, my goodness, is it tonight? It's going down to 20. I mean, it's, you know, it's still swinging. As soon as I see that the freeze is done, we're going to try to get the water back on and the restrooms back open again.
It's probably like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's tough because, I mean, we're out at the parks pretty frequently, and you see a lot of people checking to see if they're open, and they're not. With the warm weather, people are using the park again already.
Yeah, they'll be out there Sunday.
Yeah, so I feel bad that I can't just open the bathroom up and then close it again.
You have to shut the water off at the main, and that's,
You shut the water off in the main and then you have to blow it out. And then you fill it with, with something it's a big deal. Unfortunately, it's a big deal.
right, so I guess when you open that bathroom up sometime thereafter, if you get the paint back over, just let me know and I'll start going over. People to help.
Great. Yeah, the paint's been kept warm all winter. It's been in the garage, so we're good.
Discussion and possible action regarding dogs being let loose in enclosed play area at Brookside.
So when we had left it last time, I think the direction was that we were going to look at signage that would, one, potentially specifically identify the ordinance that was being broken if people were letting dogs not only loose in Brookside Park's tot lot and using it as a dog playground, but also people that let their dogs unleashed throughout the park system and not cleaning up after themselves and all that. So that was the one thing that we needed wording on the signage that was pointed specifically to the ordinance. The other thing, as I had written down, was what people should do when they see it taking place. Call the police, call 911, whatever, a direction to give. So when I brought it back to Steve, the manager, he wants the discussion brought to the Board of Supervisors because we will be installing signs up, not just at Brookside, but in all the parks that would be giving that direction. So he wants them to weigh in on it, but before we bring it to them, he wants the police chief and he and I to have the wording ready to go. And we've knocked it around a little bit. We haven't finalized what exactly that sign would be, because you also don't want a sign that becomes a billboard because it's got so much information on it. But at the same point, it's got to have enough information that, one, people know what to do if they see it, and two, it's very clear what you're breaking if you're doing that. So we need some more work at the staff level to then bring it to the Board of Supervisors to get the authorization to start changing the signage out with that. Presuming that is still the direction that I took that you had given to us.
Yeah, I believe we're where we want to go, right?
Yes.
Right. Now, there already are signs about cleaning up after your.
And the fact that you're not allowed to unleash it.
Right.
And Brookside Park, the tot lot has a sign right on the gate that says dogs are not permitted in the tot lot. It's very clear. If you're going in there doing it,
You open the gate, you see the sign.
you have to walk past the sign in order to go in.
But they still do.
They still do. And again, so that was where I remember the discussion last time was, what do people do when they see that then, and if the police, I think what they're going to say is you call 911. I think that's it, because most people probably would not initially think to themselves that they should call 911 over seeing something like that. But if that's what the police chief decides is the way to say it, and the board gives the thumbs up to it, then that's what we can produce.
It has been a long standing. Discussion and possible action related to the Chalk Park community event. So, Caitlin did a lot of work. She did a great job. Looked into the food, the art, and required. So she's thinking 1 gallon of water ice feeds 50 or 60 people. 50. I don't know how many people are going to be there. Is this something we want to put in the magazine as well? I was thinking I could create a flyer that says, come and meet. What's the dog's name? The canine?
Oh, the new dog. I can't remember.
Take a picture of the dog and the.
Oh, yeah. Unfortunately, when is the magazine received? May 6th. So it'll be received after the event.
All right, so I might try and get over and take a picture of him, or if there is one available with him and the dog, something on Facebook. Maybe put something in neighborhood there. Create a flyer and staple it to post.
Date of that.
Oh.
Monday, April 24th, 10 to 12.
Newbie Park.
Yes.
What's the name?
Chalk art event. So what Caitlin has looked at is getting one of these tubs of water ice, pretzels from the pretzel factory. And I think it's $60 for the pretzels and $60 for the water ice. Feed 50 people with the water ice. We got smaller cups, we could stretch it out, and then she's going to buy her own cups and serve the water ice. Cost for cups, spoons, and gloves. He's thinking $330.
Mhm.
So how do we go about paying for that? Can the township call over and?
So if you want to send me all the details, or if she wants to
Yeah.
send me the details of who we're buying from, all that, I mean, we could cut checks ahead of time and give them to them when we pick the stuff up.
Okay.
Unless they want to bill us, in which case we could do that.
So one of us could take the township check over ourselves and pick it up?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Because we would have already sent the check to the Board of Supervisors. They would have approved it. We would have it in hand at that point, and then we would just give it to you to give to them.
We'll have to have this to you by next meeting so that you can get it on the agenda for supervisors for the.
Yeah, but if you and or Caitlin want to send me what the different items are that we're buying and who we're buying them from, I can start putting things together ahead of time.
You want me to get something together for the Board of Supervisors before our next meeting, or? Want us to
Well,
formalize this?
we should have something together for the board about the event itself. With regard to the expenses, no, I think we can handle them as part of the, Public Works working in the parks.
All right, okay. All right,
All that'll happen is that I'll submit it as an expense, to have a check cut for. But I don't think we would need to make it a separate agenda item because it's not a very large expense.
Okay.
And we've got a budget for some community events.
Right. I will get you that information tonight.
Okay.
And then last on the agenda is finalize committee goals for 2022. And I think that we want to have 2 concerts, May and September concerts. I think our September date is the 10th. Gather in the circle. Back date yet. Or the week after. Anything else? Anyone? We have the team. We want to do a teen event in September. How about disc golf?
Well, I'm ready to set it up. But, I won't be here.
Concerts. We're not going to do it. September concert.
September concert, I think would be, that's a good starting place.
So then mural on the basketball court. She's still interested in doing it. She's trying to work things out. The last I spoke with her, I told her to help her cut patterns out because she was struggling to figure out how to cut patterns. They're trying to use more spray paint as much as possible to make it quicker.
Does she have a sense as to when she would want to do it so that we can start scheduling when we're shutting it down?
So that's what I'm hoping she's going back with now. Schedule.
Okay. So, and I don't know if it's too early, whether the temperature might still get lower at night or those kind of things, but April the 1st through, I mean, let's just say for the month of April, we have to replace the stormwater pipe that runs down the driveway right next to the basketball court. So it's going to be disheveled over there anyway. Folks using the basketball court aren't going to have as easy access to it in the month of April. I don't know if April might be a good time for them to look at doing the painting, because again, it would be a very easy time for us to shut the basketball court down. I'm not saying it has to be in April, but just today they said that the pipe is going to be replaced during April. We're going to be shutting down the driveway in between the back of the building, which is the turf field side, and the front of the building. So it could be a natural time that there would be, yeah, that I could shut the basketball court down for them.
I will let her know that.
Yeah, just, and again, there's prep work we would need to do ahead of time. So, you know, whenever she picks a date, as much heads up as we get would be good, because I do have to schedule the prep work first.
Right. And then, you know, with Drexel Lodge, teachers might actually paint on risers of the steps, block art from the students. It's something that they were looking at. That might happen this year. Anything else?
That's it.
Yes.
It goes up into that section.
Both steps.
Yeah. Yeah, just on the riser, so when you look at it, there's a little color pop.
And we will be, upon the completion of the painting of the restroom building, we will then look to get the water bottle filling station ordered and installed.
Oh, cool, right.
Where will that be located?
We have to narrow down exactly where it's going to be, because two things with the mural being done: one, we didn't want to run the risk of paint getting on it, but two, we wanted to make sure that we didn't plan on putting something in which would actually conflict with what they were painting. You know, I wouldn't want to have a beautiful piece of art and then realize that I have now messed it up by sticking a water bottle filling station right in front of it.
Right. And I think we did I did talk to the teacher that was going to go in there. The only other thing I have is we're going to do yoga in the park again this year with some other options, and I think she always put something together for us if she did that.
Sheila Sullivan Beanie, 120 Beechwood Road, Newtown Square, PA. Okay, so as a volunteer on Parks and Rec, we were able to confirm that for the summer series, we're going to be looking into a fitness in the park summer series. So it won't be specifically yoga, but it will be provided, and this has been confirmed by Alex Young from Young Forever Fitness. They're located at 3610 Chapel Road in Newtown Square. What's wonderful about Alex is we're going to provide classes Tuesday evening from 6:15 to 7:15. And we're looking probably starting, maybe we're going to get confirmation on the start date, but either June 7th or 14th and go to August 23rd. So that's 10 or 11 weeks of the summer program. It'll be open to all people of all abilities. We want to make sure it's a positive experience for everyone. So Alex understands that, you know, even though maybe each week will be a different theme class, there might be like a boot camp type thing, that we always have to make sure that everyone feels comfortable with the classes, especially, you know, different age points and different abilities. This is wonderful. So what we'll look for you guys, I will work with Wade in getting the content together for the magazine to make sure we can make that deadline. And that would be really important. Also, I'm looking if you guys can approve a sign, a lawn sign that will be at the park. Last year we did it, it'll probably be about $90 because we use Pegasus. So if you guys are okay with that. But it was important to set up a permanent location in the park. I will make flyers up myself, and I usually do those myself, my own budget. But I'm going to need your help, guys, with getting the word out. And Steve, I'm going to ask you, what we'll do is every week I will send you the content. You'll put it through Newtown Township Facebook page, and that way I can then spread it out. That way it's within the guidelines of Sunshine. Everything will go through you, just like we did last year with Nick. So in addition, Leonard will generously also share it. So our goal is hopefully by Thursday, I'll get you the content. You'll create the post and share it by Thursday or Friday. Leonard then will share it like Sunday or Monday because Tuesday night is class. So we want to make sure we're kind of keeping things rolling. All of the content you create, I will share to all the community pages. So
Sheila, what were the hours again?
that will be 6:15 to 7:15 on Tuesday evening from June, starting either the 7th and up to the 14th, one of those days, and go to August 23rd. We want to kind of stop before Labor Day because I have to be at every one of these events and, be sure that somebody's from parks there looking at the events, making sure it's safety, committing, making people feel welcome. So that's kind of, I also need your help, guys, with that. Just in case I run into nights that I can't be there, because it is a huge commitment and it's about 2 hours of commitment every week for it. So just in case I can't make a night, I definitely need some support on that. But Alex Young is just a nutrition coach and really positive that we're going to make this a fun, great experience this summer. And I'm really looking forward to it. In addition, I know this is possible. I'm not confirmed yet, but we really want to have a program for 0 to 4-year-olds. And this is really important, especially because children 0 to 4 are the Zumbini classes. So we're looking to do one class each month. That would be one class, June, July, and August. And really, we want to make sure that we're hitting different times for parents. So we don't want to just have the same night. So we might do like one day time and one Wednesday night and one Thursday night. And that way, because there's different parents with different schedules, we want to make sure everyone feels like a chance to have this opportunity, especially for the young children. We would also look to, and we'll present this, I know Wade and I already spoke, but we're going to present it to the supervisors, maybe having a Zumbini do the same thing at Brookside this year, because kids 0 to 4 have no opportunities because of the vaccination situation to really partake in a lot of these activities. So if we can, we'll look at doing what we did at Brookside, and I'll send that content off to Wade, and then we'll send it off to you, George. Thirdly, this week I was at the Western Conservation Forestry for the Pennsylvania DCNR, and really exciting things in this entire conference. And we'll go into some of the details, and Wade and I have briefly discussed them. But one thing I really want to make sure you guys are aware of is the C2P2, and that's the community grants that are available through DCNR. And those grants are started from March 3rd and they end April 6th. There's 4 different types of grants that are really helpful. And I thought specifically about Greer Park, because although you have some grant funding for there's an area regarding the riparian buffers. There's some trail implementation things that you might really look into. I will mention that at EAC meeting, but I think it would be important that from a community standpoint, that obviously everything has to go through the township, but we.
Right, so you sent me the
Yep.
link to, I haven't had a chance to look
Yep.
at it. I apologize. I will take a look at it. And if there's any applicable grants, Parks and Rec, easy enough. I have some grant information that we use for Greer Park, the
Right.
jars.
Well, what I'll do is I'll present it to the EAC board on Monday. And I really just want to make sure that in case Steve or somebody else from Trails, just so it's a coordinated effort from the township, in case there are grant opportunities, because we can only go to bat so many times. And I want to make sure that the township's prioritizing, if we're asking for $25,000, but they've got a project that's worth $100,000, I don't want to take away that opportunity.
I'll reach out to Rich Lafayette and let him know if we're gonna do anything before we even do it.
Right.
Just, I run this by you.
Yep.
Is it gonna
But
impact
there's
you?
a community aspect of that grant as well. So if you can look at those, that'll really be helpful. And also, we'll get the concert flyers, the fitness flyers and the Zumbini flyers to you, Steve, to make sure that they hit the magazine deadlines. One thing I really would like, if you guys could think about this, is from parks, and we were talking about your goals for 2022. And this is something of a long-term vision, but at the forestry, they were really saying that we really need to almost change the paradigm in terms of the way that we think of green and open space. And I really would like, and I'll present this to EAC on Monday, if the Parks Commission can really think about how we can utilize our parks in a different way. And what I'm looking at is doing a long conversion program. Obviously, there's a huge amount with trees that are going to be prioritized, but what it will do is still provide you the open space, the green space, but we would reduce our mowable grass, which would be a cost savings for the township. It gives you still the beauty, looking at ways of just changing the open space that we have and really kind of providing a green environment for our community, as well as, cost confinement, but also really, taking natural native plants in those things. I'm looking to do mine with the seed mix. So not everything has to be planted, but there would be obviously trees that are the priority for the township to hit their 1,000 goal. But it's something to really think about, of re-envisioning our parks as to how we can better utilize them and make a more green environment. So I ask you to think about that, make that a priority. And another thing that, Wade, when you were mentioning in your concerts, originally Pints in the Square was scheduled for the 24th, but now their date is now the 17th. And I understand from Gather in the Circle, George, if you can check this, I believe Gather in the Circle is the 10th. Is that correct, George?
I do not know.
I have to clarify that, but Wade, you really need to, we got to check with that because that
Well,
affects your
I'm not
concert.
gonna worry about the concert in September, until after this concert.
Okay. Okay.
By then, they should have decided on their dates. We'll work around that.
And I think what happened originally, Gather in the Circle, was depending on changing their date, because originally Pints in the Square was the 24th. That's the date they selected last year, but now I understand their date was changed to the 17th. So I just want to make you aware of that, because it's helpful to us to know what's going on in the community, to make sure that we're not competing with each other.
Circles in.
I'm gonna, no, I'm not, I didn't give the exact date. I believe it's the 10th, but I will confirm that and get back to you. And I think that's basically it. But we're on board with do you all approve of the Fitness in the Park series for the summer of 2022?
So what is the cost going to be?
There's no cost to the township. Alex is going to do this, where he's benefiting is the community benefits from him providing us free. And listen, we really have to think about for next year, having this as a budgetary item, because these are professionals that can make $100 plus per class. So he's providing these classes to the township for free, and it's incredible and it's generous. We are grateful, because this is a great opportunity for the community to become healthier, make aware, and really encourage people to try a class and not make them feel just overwhelmed with signing up for something. You get to try, you get to see if it's a good fit for you, and it's outside in our parks, and it's open to all people. And I love how every week is a different class.
But there was a cost of $90.
The sign, for the sign.
All right, so council should be okay with that. Do we want us to approve it first?
I think that's just the cost of doing what we do. So
Yeah.
I think if you're okay with it,
Yes.
it almost doesn't need to be a,
And
you know,
Wade,
an
what I'll do
agenda
is
item.
I'll send you the content, the information that will be on the sign, and George copy it. And then are we okay with using Pegasus, because they are the local, who we use locally? And I'm going to ask him this year if I can have just the sign and not the post, because I gave back the post to Paul, and I'm trying to, that's like $10, $15 if he can give me the sign without having to do it. But that's a great way. We're also going to need to have the township logo on that sign, just like we did last year. So I'll need to get that graphic from you.
Mhm.
And we'll clear it off and make sure, should we do the same yellow format that we did last year with the same black printing for the sign like we did? Everything like last year, the sign?
Yeah, I think it looked good, yeah.
Yep. All right, cool. All right, great.
Thank you, Sheila, thanks.
One thing I wanted to mention about, you said that reimagining our lawns and not have, so much grass and mowing. If we have trees there, we don't really want, I don't think we would want like really tall trees. Like that ends up shading the whole thing, turns it into wood.
Yeah, there's lawn conversions that would be, short grasses, there would be woodlands, there's different ways to create it. So,
Almost like a meadow. like
Yes.
More of a natural.
and
setting.
there's different prairies, you can even have some that have just grasses, but like even golf courses. I mean, it would be great for our community golf course and our to look at and saying, hey, if you have, 15, we examined Londonderry Township, which was incredible what they did. They have a golf course and they were able to take 15 acres and convert in a golf course and convert that into meadows and open prairie lands and flowering areas. And it was not in any way, you could have trees if you wanted to, but remember these are meadows that would be open and kind of, it allows you the opportunity to reduce your mowing space and really kind of.
Which park were you thinking?
I was looking at each one. At Brookside, the area over by the hill that you have that up space, if you look behind the cages, that's that property area. And now I understand Brookside is one of those parks that we might be doing a master plan on in a couple of years. So you don't want to do anything that's too permanent, but if you could look at allowing yourself, you still want to, you have 19 acres at Brookside, right? At 19 acres, 19.3 acres there. So what you'd look to do is increase the riparian buffers along Brookside and along both sides. And on the area by the hill where, if you know the sign right on the properties are aligned to you where the baseball cage is, that area up there, you have a little bit of land up there.
Right.
That would be a great area for both trees. And then below that would be a really nice area for like a meadow.
I think
Because-
we would rely on EAC to kind of guide us in those areas, right?
Right. Well, actually, I'm going to ask the EAC and actually ask the boards to look into really having, and in some of these township have an MS4 environmental specialist that's on board with the township. And their full-time job would be help support the township accomplish this goal, because this is, way more work than Georgia is already inundated with so many things. And this is really a commitment of somebody running and taking tasks to really bring this to fruition. But it requires a lot of work, but there's also incredible grants that are out there for this. I mean, there's opportunities for the township to utilize, but more importantly, it's a way for us to have parks be a beautiful place, be an open place. I mean, you can have still, meandering walks, you can create it with open pathways that you could maintain, but just not having to maintain your whole grass cutting, because that changes the way we use our parks. But it would allow us to really kind of revert the park back to a natural state. But what's important is there's some big things that are about, there's some what they call care cues. And they're kind of letting people know that this isn't somebody just being lazy, not cutting the grass. There's a specific design to this. And this is where you would really look at, having a lawn conversion program or somebody to walk parks through it, because it is a lot, and it's something the environmental council can work with the township and work with parks. But we could also look to get outside expertise to really, they say that to convert 1 acre of land, and this is between whichever way you till the land or you prep the area beforehand. But with the seeding and the outside cost would be roughly $5,000 to $6,000 for an acre. So that's your upfront cost. But what's interesting about it is you don't have to mow that whole area again. More importantly, you have a beautiful area and you, by your seed definition, now the seeds that I'm picking for my property, I'm picking year-round coverage. So I want to make sure that there's something always in blooming. So in the spring, I'll have my Virginia bluebells and I'll have my lupin and things that are throughout the year that will be in this garden. So it's always going to be a light hint of color, and it's not going to be over, it's not going to look like I'm just not cutting my lawn, but it's something to really think about. And we'll talk about it more at EAC. I just want to think that if Parks is supportive of things that we can do to be environmentally aware, and you have between Greer and Brookside, you're touching the watershed at two important parts. And that is a wetland in both of those areas of those parks. So if we can do something to bridge the gap and just keep our area all together, and what we do in the parks will ripple into the neighborhood. So
We appreciate it. And we're always looking for ways to cut costs for maintenance as well.
yeah, but more importantly, you're not cutting anything out of the enjoyment of the park.
Right.
It's still an open space. It's still gorgeous. It still looks like it's well cared for. This isn't anything you're doing just to, save money. I mean, obviously that's a great benefit, but you're doing this because this is right for our community, our environment, and it really will promote a change in the way that we really landscape our properties. Because if by starting with the township, we're setting the tone as to saying, hey, we can, change things.
But it would only be, if I may, it would only be used in areas that would not be active recreation. Right?
Exactly.
Like, so you wouldn't convert an area that
We have a play.
people use.
Oh, no, none of your play areas or none of your fields or anything. This would be kind of maybe like even on, if you look at Drexel Lodge Park. Okay, you know how with the areas we have for the concerts. So you could say maybe, 100 by 100 feet, you would say that's would be our quote sitting area. And obviously you'd have a path area. But then along the perimeter, maybe you might have, a 20 by 80 long or whatever, 20 feet wide by 80, that you would create like a buffer along that. And what it does is it allows you just to reimagine your space and not give up anything in terms of usefulness of your space. And it's just is looking at how can you configure your space that accomplishes your goal of allowing people to feel like they're part of nature. They also talked about this thing, have you ever heard nature bath? And it's the concept of, how people are affected by their environments. And being in nature for, 10 minutes can really impact their mental health, their physical health, and encouraging it. So with all that the township's trying to do with its trails and its parks development, this is just another way to make our, a world a little greener and also beautification too. And so it's really neat, exciting stuff. We'll talk a lot about that about EAC next week. But if Parks is supportive of it, and I can give you further details once we kind of really flush out a lot of these things out, it would really be helpful because if you're supporting what's right for the environment, it will help the EAC, provide the information to the supervisors and help them make good decisions about it. So it's a win-win across the board.
I think we.
Perfect. Anything else that you require of me since I'm a volunteer on your committee?
I wanted to ask George something. About,
All right, I'm done.
remember you were mentioning about replacing the bleachers in Brookside with the ones from Gable, reduced in size, and you're going to take the old bleachers out of Brookside because they're like all overgrown, busted out. I'm wondering that there's that batting cage there, and I know somebody put it in there a while ago, but the fence is like falling down, the ceiling, it's overgrown with weeds. Nobody really uses it.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, I think it's just a nice. I'm wondering, could that be removed as well as the old bleacher?
So I have been having discussions about that very issue of not only the batting cage, but the whole field down there.
Post.
Yeah. And well, I mean, it's interesting because the post gets used. It actually still gets used. There used to be two of them. There used to be both of them up. Now there's just one. They play half and do it that way. Yeah, Brookside Park. I mean, I don't really like the batting cage. I know who put it up. I know
That used to be over at the softball.
Correct.
area, and they moved it there. That used to be a great hill for sled.
yes.
Put that batting cage in there and it's just a hazard. Now you really can't select. It'll hit the batting cage.
Yeah. So we have been talking about the batting cage, about the whole piece over there. It was interesting. So we were also talking. Oh my goodness. it might not have been last year, it might have been 2 years ago, with some of the sports teams that were interested in trying to revitalize the softball field itself. And similar to what I reported to you a few years ago with Drexel Lodge, some of them, they wanted to contribute to help bring it back to what it used to be, a much more manicured section. But the caveat was then they were hoping for some exclusive use of it. And I pushed back pretty hard on that because I said, it is the one place in town that you could just go have a pickup game and play. And I'm like, I would rather have something that's much more meat and potatoes and not manicured that you could go play versus have something that's so scheduled that like Drexel Lodge can get that way. I mean, it could be tough to go play at Drexel Lodge because of how many teams use it. You can't go play a pickup game at Gable Field because it's always scheduled. There's always somebody using it. That being said, I'm looking at that cage because the cage bothers me. The backstop bothers me. The whole layout down there bothers me. So that's a point well taken. We'll look at that and see whether it's time for the thing to come down again. Yeah, because I'm not even sure what permission was given when it went up. I know it was there when I
Just
started.
appeared.
That was many years.
Yeah, well, I remember when it wasn't there.
At least
When our
one
kids
year.
were little, we used to sled on that hill, and then that thing showed up, and it's like,
Well, and it is another example of different folks who have different visions for what the space can get used for. Obviously somebody at one point envisioned that space specifically for softball.
Right.
Other folks, might, like the hill, some might say, well, we should just plant trees on it or do those kind of things, but then you can't sled on it. And that's going to be one of the challenges of EAC and Park and Rec and trails and all the different groups is, what is the best use of the space and bringing it all together? Because, trails has visions of trails going places that I'm sure EAC might have a vision of, a beautiful meadow being in that area, and Newtown Square and Bloom or Park and Rec might envision some active, things going right in that area. So that's just where you'll need to all work and come up with your own master plan for some of those things. But I will work on that cage.
All right, thank you, Sheila. We will consider all, yes.
He's deputized me.
Yes. Items for next agenda. We're going to talk about the state. So I guess we'll keep new business, add the new business under old business. Shade. The Geese, I guess we'll report on the Geese again.
Mm-hmm.
Then we'll just leave that under Public Works update, I guess. And I guess we'll report on the concert. Continue with the Drexel Lodge review, the dogs, community chalk event. I can get it, yeah, it's not gonna be in the magazine. Timing's not working.
If the Parks and Rec could, this would be really helpful for your post, and maybe the township could do this for the concert and maybe for the class. If you could do a Facebook boost for the, it'll cost maybe $15 to $20, depending depending upon how many times you boosted. But at the seminar this weekend, they were talking about, getting your message out. And apparently you only get 4% actual for no matter, I think the township has 1,500 likes on their page. So only 4% of your likes actually see your messaging. So if you don't have people that will actually comment on your pictures and like them, that actually brings your number down. So anything you can do to boost it and play with the algorithms obviously helps by commenting, but you can boost it and pay for that fee per event. And it's a slight amount per event. So if you could authorize maybe 2 or 3 boost fees, and it's, as I said, it could be $20 to $25 for the concert, and maybe for your,
Let's add that to the agenda.
Yeah.
Facebook boost.
yeah, Facebook boost fees. And if you could, I would say we would need about 3 for the summer series, and we'll do 1 in June, 1 in July, and 1 in August, and then 1 for your Zumbini and 1 or 2 for your concerts.
So at the next meeting, there would be a formal presentation as
yeah.
to what those costs are
Yeah.
and what exactly is involved with that,
If
right?
you
Because
can-
that can add up.
Yeah, Steve, you
quickly.
can, you'll have to get a quote from that directly on your account for Facebook, because I cannot, it has to be done through the Newtown Township's Facebook page. So you would ask them what the quote would be for boosting, and you could get that fee, and if you could present that way the board can decide on it, and maybe some of the fees can be, depends on how many people you want to reach. Since you only have 1,500 people, that's the max that you can reach. But it would be good if you could start encouraging more people to like Newtown page now. And so when you send out content, if you could do that, that would help bring your numbers up, which will allow it. I will also ask Leonard, since he has 5,000 people, to share all this content, which is like basically having him do it first as a boost. But I will also see if he can have people like your page as well. Because again, we're trying to encourage the way that apparently the, Facebook is really for the 40, 50 and 60-year-old people. It's not really in the younger generation. And it's really not the only way we want to disseminate information to residents, but it is one way. But it would be helpful for us to kind of get the messaging out. I will also do posters, as I said. I will also do signs, and I do need help with that as well. Because last year, Wade and I covered all the locations. We covered all the Wawas and all the storefronts and the post office, and it's a lot. So if anyone wants to help me with that, that would be greatly appreciated as well.
I should state that Steve is kind of keeping some of the communication things like Facebook and all that afloat. That's not really his responsibility unless it gets changed over to him. So again, he's helping to keep that stuff up while they readjust in the office, but his job is not normally doing those things. Yes, and again, he's keeping it all afloat, but I don't know that that is his long-term responsibility. Unless it is, we'll see.
Yes, does anyone else have anything to add to the agenda?
Well, if we come up with something,
We can add that next month, right? And we're all working things. I'm trying to work a few things that are possible. I guess we're adjourned.